It was a quiet Tuesday afternoon when everything changed. The sky over New York was clear, with only a few puffy clouds floating lazily across the blue expanse. People went about their day as usual, not knowing that high above them, history was about to be made. In the busy control room of NASA's Space Monitoring Station, Jane Smith sat at her desk, sipping her third coffee of the day. Her eyes were fixed on the screens in front of her, showing the usual data from satellites and space telescopes. Suddenly, a red light started flashing on her console. An alarm beeped loudly. "What the?" Jane muttered, her coffee forgotten as her fingers flew over the keyboard. The data coming in didn't make sense. It showed a large object appearing out of nowhere, right at the edge of Earth's orbit. "Sir, you need to see this," Jane called out to her supervisor, Dr. Mark Johnson. He rushed over, his face turning pale as he looked at the screen. "Is this real?" he asked, his voice shaking slightly. Jane nodded, her eyes wide. "It just appeared, sir. 1 second there was nothing, and the next, this." Dr. Johnson reached for the phone. "I need to alert the higher-ups. This could be first contact." As word spread, the control room buzzed with excitement and fear. Scientists and technicians huddled around screens, trying to make sense of the data pouring in. The object was huge, easily the size of a small city. It wasn't like any spacecraft they had ever seen or imagined. Halfway across the world, in a small village in India, a young boy named Raj was playing cricket with his friends when he noticed something strange in the sky. A bright light, brighter than any star, seemed to be growing larger by the second. "Look!" he shouted, pointing up. His friends stopped playing and stared in awe. Soon, the whole village was out in the streets, necks craned upwards. Similar scenes played out across the globe. From the busy streets of Tokyo to the quiet plains of Africa, people everywhere saw the strange light in the sky. Social media exploded with photos and videos, theories ranging from comets to divine intervention. Back at NASA, Jane and her team had made a startling discovery. The object was transmitting a signal. It took them hours to decode it, but when they did, the message was clear. "Help us. We come in peace. Our people are dying. Please." The message repeated over and over, in a language unlike any on Earth, but somehow translatable by their computers. It was a plea for help, a desperate call from the stars. World leaders were quickly informed. Emergency meetings were called. The UN Security Council gathered in a late-night session. The question on everyone's mind was the same. What should they do? Some argued for caution. It could be a trap, they said. We should be prepared for anything. Others pushed for immediate action. If they needed our help, how could we refuse? They asked. This could be our chance to prove ourselves as a species. As debates raged on Earth, the alien ship moved closer. It entered Earth's atmosphere, causing spectacular light shows across the sky. People watched in a mixture of fear and wonder as the massive craft slowly descended. It finally came to rest in a remote area of the Sahara Desert. The ship was even more impressive up close. Its surface shimmered with an otherworldly metal, covered in strange symbols, and pulsing with soft lights. A team of international experts was quickly assembled. Scientists, linguists, diplomats, and military personnel from around the world were flown to the site. They approached the ship cautiously, not knowing what to expect. As they neared, a door opened in the side of the craft. A ramp extended to the ground. The team held their breath, hands shaking, hearts pounding. This was it, the moment humanity had wondered about for centuries. First contact. From the darkness of the ship's interior, a figure emerged. It was tall and thin, with pale blue skin and large dark eyes. It raised a hand in what seemed to be a gesture of peace. The alien spoke, its voice soft and melodious. To everyone's surprise, they could understand it. "We thank you for not destroying us," it said. "We come seeking refuge. Our people are in great danger. Will you hear our story?" And so, on that historic day, humanity's place in the universe changed forever. The tale of a desperate race, abandoned by their galactic neighbors and seeking help from a species they had never met, was about to unfold. Earth's decision in the coming days would not only shape its own future, but potentially that of the entire galaxy. The world held its breath as the international team stepped onto the alien ship. Dr. Emily Chen, a renowned xenobiologist, led the group. Her heart raced as she entered the dimly lit corridor. The air inside was cool and smelled faintly of ozone. "This way, please," the alien guide said softly. Its voice was like music, rising and falling in strange patterns. Dr. Chen nodded, signaling the team to follow. They entered a large, circular room. The walls pulsed with soft blue light. In the center stood a group of aliens, their tall, slender forms motionless as statues. One stepped forward, its large eyes blinking slowly. "I am Zor-El, leader of the Lumina," it said. "We thank you for your courage in meeting us." Dr. Chen cleared her throat. "We welcome you to Earth," she said, her voice steady despite her nerves. "Can you tell us why you've come?" Zor-El's eyes dimmed, a sign of sadness. "Our story is one of tragedy and hope," it began. "For millennia, we were part of a great galactic community. We lived in peace, sharing knowledge and resources with many races." As Zor-El spoke, images appeared in the air around them. The team gasped, seeing visions of incredible alien worlds and advanced civilizations. But then, everything changed. Zor-El continued. "A new power rose in the galaxy. They called themselves the Dominion. They valued only strength and conquest." The images shifted, showing massive warships and planets in flames. Dr. Chen felt a chill run down her spine. "The Lumina are a peaceful race," Zor-El said. "We believe in science, art, and harmony with nature." The Dominion saw this as weakness. They demanded we change our ways or face destruction. "What did you do?" Dr. Chen asked, her voice barely a whisper. "We refused to abandon our principles," Zor-El replied. "So we were cast out. Abandoned by those we once called allies, we wandered the stars, searching for a new home." The team exchanged shocked glances. The idea that advanced alien races could be so cruel was hard to accept. "Why Earth?" asked Colonel Jack Harper, the military representative. "What made you choose us?" Zor-El's eyes brightened slightly. "We observed your world for some time. We saw a young species, full of potential. You have conflict, yes, but also great capacity for kindness and growth. We hoped you might understand our plight." Dr. Chen felt a mix of pride and concern. "You said your people are dying. How can we help?" "Our ship's systems are failing," Zor-El explained. "We need a place to land, to repair and rebuild. We offer our knowledge in exchange for sanctuary." The team huddled together, discussing in hurried whispers. The implications were enormous. Earth wasn't just making first contact. It was being asked to take sides in a galactic conflict. "We'll need to consult with our leaders," Dr. Chen finally said. "This decision affects our entire planet." Zor-El nodded. "We understand. But please, time is short. Our children grow weaker by the day." As if on cue, a small alien child appeared, clutching the glowing toy. Its large eyes looked at the humans with curiosity and hope. The sight tugged at everyone's hearts. The team left the ship with heavy thoughts. As they emerged, they found a crowd had gathered at the perimeter. News helicopters circled overhead. The world was waiting for answers. Dr. Chen stepped up to the hastily assembled podium. Cameras flashed as she began to speak. "People of Earth," she said, her voice carried across the globe. "Today we have met beings from another world. They come not as conquerors, but as refugees, seeking our help." She paused, looking at the faces before her. "We stand at a crossroads. Our decision will shape not just our future, but potentially that of the galaxy. The Lumina offer us knowledge beyond our dreams, but helping them may put us at odds with powerful forces we barely understand. As Dr. Chen continued her speech, debates erupted worldwide. In homes, offices, and on social media, people argued passionately. Some saw opportunity, others danger. The fate of two species now hung in the balance. In the ship, Zor-El watched the unfolding events on a shimmering screen. And now, it said softly to its companions, "We wait. Our future rests in their hands." The Lumina gathered around their leader, their gentle voices rising in a song of hope. On Earth, humanity faced its greatest decision yet. The next few days would determine the course of history for both worlds. As news of the alien refugees spread, Earth erupted into chaos. People around the world were glued to their screens, watching as history unfolded before their eyes. In every nation, in every city, the same question echoed: what should we do? In New York, the United Nations building buzzed with activity. World leaders had gathered for an emergency session. The General Assembly Hall was packed, with tension thick in the air. UN Secretary General Maria Lopes stood at the podium, her face grave. "We face a decision unlike any in human history," she began. "The Lumina ask for our help, but in doing so, we may make powerful enemies we know nothing about." As she spoke, protests erupted outside. Some people carried signs welcoming the aliens, while others demanded they be sent away. Police struggled to keep the peace as arguments turned heated. In a small town in Kansas, Farmer John Miller sat with his family, watching the news. "We can't turn them away," he said, his voice firm. "It ain't right to leave folks in need." His daughter, Sarah, looked worried. "But Dad, what if helping them puts us in danger?" John sighed, patting her hand. "Sometimes doing the right thing is scary, sweetie, but that's what makes it brave." Meanwhile, in Beijing, the Chinese leadership held a closed-door meeting. General Zhang pounded his fist on the table. "We cannot risk the safety of our people for these aliens," he shouted. But Professor Lai, a respected scientist, disagreed. "Think of what we could learn from them," she argued. "Their technology could solve our energy crisis, cure diseases." Back at the UN, debates raged on. The Russian representative stood up. "We must protect ourselves," he declared. "These aliens could be lying. It could be a trick to invade us." The room erupted in shouts and arguments. Secretary General Lopes banged her gavel, calling for order. In orbit, aboard the International Space Station, astronaut Mike Chen looked down at Earth. He could see the Lumina ship, a tiny speck in the Sahara. "It's strange," he radioed to ground control. "From up here, our problems seem so small. We're all just specks in the universe." His words were broadcast globally, making many people stop and think. As the debate continued, Dr. Emily Chen was called to testify before the UN. She stood before the world's leaders, her voice steady. "I've spoken with the Lumina," she said. "I've seen their ship, their technology. Yes, helping them is a risk, but think of the opportunity. We could take our place among the stars." She paused, looking around the room. "More than that, we have a chance to show the galaxy what humanity stands for. Are we a species that turns away those in need? Or are we one that extends a hand in friendship, even when it's difficult?" Her words struck a chord with many, but others remained unconvinced. In response, Colonel Harper presented a different view. "We must be cautious," he warned. "If these Dominion aliens are as powerful as the Lumina say, we could be signing our own death warrant by helping." The debate spread beyond the UN. In universities, scientists argued over the potential benefits and dangers of alien technology. In churches, temples, and mosques, religious leaders grappled with the theological implications of extraterrestrial life. Social media exploded with opinions. Hashtags like #WelcomeLumina and #EarthFirst trended worldwide. Conspiracy theories ran wild, with some claiming the whole thing was a government hoax. As day turned to night, and then to day again, no consensus was reached. The world remained divided. Finally, Secretary General Lopes made a decision. "We will hold a global referendum," she announced. "Let the people of Earth decide." The announcement was met with mixed reactions. Some praised the democratic approach, while others feared the consequences of leaving such a crucial decision to popular vote. As preparations for the vote began, the Lumina waited anxiously in their ship. Zor-El gazed out at the Earth, marveling at its blue oceans and swirling clouds. "Such a beautiful world," he murmured. "I hope they choose wisely." On Earth, humanity stood at a crossroads. The decision they were about to make would not just affect their own future, but potentially the course of galactic history. As voting day approached, tensions rose. The world held its breath, waiting to see what path they would choose. The world had voted. After days of intense debate and a nail-biting election, the results were in. By a narrow margin, humanity had decided to offer refuge to the Lumina. As dawn broke over the Sahara, a small group of world leaders approached the alien ship. Secretary General Lopes led the way, flanked by representatives from major nations. They carried with them humanity's official response. Zor-El emerged from the ship, hope shining in his large eyes. Secretary General Lopes stepped forward, her voice steady. "People of Lumina," she said, "Earth has made its decision. We offer you sanctuary, but with conditions." The alien leader nodded solemnly. "We understand. Please, tell us your terms." The conditions were laid out. The Lumina would be allowed to settle in designated areas. They would share their advanced knowledge, particularly in medicine and clean energy. In return, Earth would provide resources and protection. "We accept your terms with gratitude," Zor-El said, bowing deeply. And so, the great integration began. It was not easy. Despite the vote, many humans remained wary of their new neighbors. In Arizona, a patch of desert was transformed into New Lumina, the aliens' first settlement on Earth. Curious onlookers gathered at the edges of the site, watching as strange, shimmering structures rose from the sand. Sarah Miller, the Kansas farmer's daughter, had volunteered to help. She approached a Lumina child who was planting a weird glowing seed. "What's that?" she asked, pointing. The alien child looked up, blinking its large eyes. "It's a light tree," it said in perfect English. "It will grow food and clean the air." Sarah's eyes widened in wonder. Maybe this wasn't so scary after all. Meanwhile, in laboratories around the world, human scientists worked alongside Lumina experts. Dr. Emily Chen found herself in awe of their knowledge. "This is incredible," she muttered, looking at a holographic display of a Lumina medical device. It could revolutionize cancer treatment. But not everyone was so enthusiastic. In a small-town bar, John, a local mechanic, grumbled into his beer. "Them aliens are taking our jobs," he complained. "My cousin got laid off 'cause some Lumina machine does the work of 10 men. His friend Tom nodded in agreement. "And have you seen the prices at the supermarket? Ever since they arrived, everything's gotten more expensive." These concerns weren't ignored. Governments scrambled to create new job training programs and economic aid packages. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. As weeks turned into months, the initial fear began to fade. Lumina children started attending human schools, while adult aliens joined community clubs and sports teams. In New York, a Lumina art exhibition drew record crowds, its otherworldly beauty captivating viewers. But integration wasn't just happening on Earth. The Joint Human-Lumina Space Program was launched. Colonel Jack Harper, once cautious of the aliens, now found himself commanding a mixed crew on humanity's first interplanetary mission. As their ship approached Mars, Harper looked at his Lumina co-pilot, Zora. "You know," he said with a grin, "a year ago, I never would have imagined this." Zora's eyes twinkled. "Life is full of surprises, Jack. That's what makes it beautiful." Back on Earth, the benefits of Lumina technology were becoming clear. A Lumina-designed water purification system had brought clean water to drought-stricken regions in Africa. In India, a Lumina energy device had eliminated smog from New Delhi's skies. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. Reports came in of anti-alien hate crimes. Some politicians used fear of the Lumina to gain power. And there were whispers of a human supremacist group called Earth First gaining followers. Zor-El, now serving as the Lumina ambassador, addressed these issues in a global broadcast. "We understand change is difficult," he said. "We have faced fear and prejudice before, but we believe in the goodness of humanity. Together, we can build a brighter future for all." His words touched many hearts. In homes around the world, humans and Lumina gathered to watch the broadcast together, sharing meals and stories. As the first year of integration came to a close, Earth had changed dramatically. New technologies were reshaping society. The first human-Lumina marriage made headlines, and in schools, children learned about both human and Lumina history. But even as Earth celebrated its new unity, a shadow loomed on the horizon. In the depths of space, the Dominion had noticed the unusual activity on this once-ignored planet. Their vast ships turned, setting a course for Earth. The true test of humanity's decision was about to begin. 2 years had passed since the Lumina arrived on Earth. The planet had changed in ways no one could have imagined. Glittering Lumina towers now stood alongside human skyscrapers. Children played with toys that seemed to defy gravity. And in hospitals around the world, diseases once thought incurable were being wiped out. But on a quiet Tuesday afternoon, everything changed again. In the newly built Galactic Monitoring Station in Geneva, alarms suddenly blared to life. Dr. Emily Chen, now head of Earth-Lumina Relations, rushed to the main control room. Her heart raced as she saw the fear on the faces of both human and Lumina operators. "What's happening?" she demanded. A young Lumina technician named Lyra looked up, her large eyes wide with terror. "It's the Dominion," she whispered. "They found us." On the main screen, a massive fleet of ships appeared at the edge of the solar system. They were unlike anything humans had ever seen. Dark, twisted shapes that seemed to devour the light around them. Within hours, the news had spread across the globe. Panic began to set in as people realized the danger they were in. In Washington, D.C., world leaders gathered for an emergency meeting. The atmosphere was tense as they debated their options. "We should surrender the Lumina," the Russian president argued. "It's them the Dominion wants. Why should we risk our planet for them?" Zor-El, who was present at the meeting, stood up. "We understand your fear," he said calmly, "but the Dominion will not stop with us. They see all other life as inferior. If you give us up, you will only be next." As the debate raged on, ordinary people around the world prepared for the worst. In New York, Sarah Miller, now a student at a mixed human-Lumina university, helped her alien friends pack emergency bags. "We're not letting you face this alone," she said firmly. Meanwhile, in orbit, Colonel Jack Harper prepared Earth's first line of defense. A fleet of ships, built with a mixture of human ingenuity and Lumina technology, stood ready. But as Harper looked at the incoming Dominion fleet, he couldn't help but feel a chill of fear. Back on Earth, Dr. Chen worked tirelessly with a team of human and Lumina scientists. They had a plan, a desperate one, but possibly their only hope. "If we can modify the Lumina's cloaking technology," she explained to the world leaders, "we might be able to hide the entire Earth from the Dominion sensors." It was a long shot, but with no other options, they agreed to try. As the Dominion fleet drew closer, the whole world held its breath. In homes, schools, and shelters, humans and Lumina huddled together, watching the sky with fearful eyes. In space, the first shots were fired. The Earth-Lumina fleet fought bravely, but they were heavily outnumbered. Colonel Harper gritted his teeth as he watched ship after ship fall to the Dominion's superior firepower. On the ground, Dr. Chen and her team worked frantically. Sweat poured down their faces as they raced against time. The fate of 2 species rested on their shoulders. Just as all seemed lost, with the Dominion breaking through the last of Earth's defenses, Dr. Chen's voice came over the global broadcast system. "We're activating the cloaking device now. she said, her voice tight with tension. "Everyone, please remain calm and stay where you are." A strange hum filled the air. The sky seemed to ripple, like the surface of a pond. And then, silence. In space, the Dominion fleet suddenly stopped their advance. Their sensors showed nothing where Earth had been just moments before. Confusion spread through their ranks. On Earth, people hardly dared to breathe. Had it worked? Hours passed. Slowly, cautiously, the Dominion ships began to retreat. They had no interest in an empty sector of space. As the last Dominion ship disappeared from their long-range sensors, cheers erupted around the world. Humans and Lumina embraced, crying tears of joy and relief. But even as they celebrated, Dr. Chen and the other leaders knew this was only the beginning. The Dominion would be back. Earth had won a battle, but the war was far from over. In the days that followed, a new sense of unity spread across the planet. The threat of the Dominion had erased the last barriers between humans and Lumina. Now, they truly saw each other as one people. As Earth began to prepare for the challenges ahead, a message was broadcast to the stars. It was a declaration of defiance, of hope, and of unity. Earth was no longer a hidden backwater. It had taken its first steps onto the galactic stage. The universe would never be the same again. 6 months had passed since the Dominion's first attack. Earth had changed. The once peaceful planet now bristled with defenses, but beneath the surface, a quiet revolution was taking place. In a lab deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, Dr. Emily Chen stood before a group of world leaders. Her eyes sparkled with excitement as she gestured to a holographic display. "We've been looking at this all wrong," she said. "We've been trying to match the Dominion's strength, but our real power lies in our differences." The leaders leaned forward, intrigued. Dr. Chen continued, "The Lumina were cast out because they were seen as weak, but their so-called weaknesses are actually incredible strengths." She pressed a button, and the hologram changed to show a strange, shimmering material. "This is Lumina silk. It's softer than anything on Earth, but it's also stronger than steel and can absorb energy like a sponge." The U.S. president raised an eyebrow. "And how does this help us against the Dominion's warships?" Dr. Chen smiled. "Imagine armor that doesn't just stop attacks, but turns them into power. We're weaving this into all our ships and buildings." In orbit, Colonel Jack Harper floated in the new Earth Lumina Defense Station. He watched as workers coated the station's hull with the shimmering Lumina silk. His Lumina second-in-command, Zora, floated up beside him. "It's beautiful," Harper said softly. Zora nodded. "Beauty and strength. This is the way of my people. We're honored to share it with Earth." Back on the ground, in New Lumina, Sarah Miller sat in a class unlike any other in human history. Human and Lumina students learned side by side, not just about science and math, but about the power of empathy and cooperation. Their teacher, a tall Lumina named Keeler, wrote on the board, "Diversity is strength." "The Dominion believes that only one way of life should exist," Keeler said. "But look around you. Our differences make us stronger. They make us creative. They make us unstoppable." As if to prove his point, alarms suddenly blared throughout the school. The Dominion had returned. This time, Earth was ready. As the Dominion fleet approached, they found not a panicked planet, but a unified force. Earth ships, coated in Lumina silk, absorbed the Dominion's energy weapons and turned them back on their attackers. On the ground, Lumina light trees sprang to life, creating shields of pure energy over cities. In hospitals, human doctors worked with Lumina healers, using a combination of advanced technology and empathic abilities to treat the wounded. The Dominion pressed their attack, but for every blow they struck, Earth and the Lumina had a counter. Lumina's emotional intelligence, once mocked by the Dominion, now allowed them to predict and outmaneuver their enemies' tactics. In the thick of the battle, Colonel Harper's ship took a direct hit. As alarms blared, he felt a calm presence in his mind. It was Zora, Using the Lumina's telepathic abilities to coordinate their crew without words, they moved as one, turning a potential disaster into a stunning victory. Dr. Chen watched from the command center as the tide of battle turned. Tears of joy streamed down her face as she saw her theories proven right. The very things that had made the Lumina outcasts were now saving two worlds. As the last Dominion ship fled, cheers erupted around the planet. Humans and Lumina embraced in the streets, no longer two separate species but one united people. In the aftermath, Zor-El addressed the United Nations. His voice rang with pride and hope. "Today we have shown the galaxy a new way," he said, "not the path of domination, but of cooperation, not of uniformity, but of cherishing our differences." The assembly burst into applause. Among them, Sarah Miller hugged her Lumina classmates, her heart swelling with pride for her planet and her new friends. As news of Earth's victory spread across the galaxy, something unexpected happened. Other races, long oppressed by the Dominion, began to reach out. They had heard of this little planet that dared to stand up to the galaxy's bullies, that found strength in diversity and compassion. Earth and the Lumina welcomed them with open arms. What had started as a desperate plea for refuge had become a beacon of hope for the entire galaxy. Dr. Chen stood at her lab window, looking up at the stars. They no longer seemed cold and distant, but full of possibility. She smiled, knowing that this was just the beginning of humanity's greatest adventure. The universe watched and wondered. What would this young, diverse, and determined alliance do next? 5 years had passed since Earth's victory over the Dominion. The Sol system, once an ignored backwater of the galaxy, now bustled with activity. Ships of all shapes and sizes, carrying beings from 100 different worlds, came and went freely. On the newly constructed space station, Unity, floating serenely above Earth, a historic gathering was about to take place. Representatives from every known spacefaring race were assembling for the first Galactic Cooperative Summit. Dr. Emily Chen, now Earth's ambassador to the stars, stood nervously before a mirror, adjusting her formal attire. A gentle hand rested on her shoulder. It was Zor-El, his eyes twinkling with pride. "Are you ready, my friend?" he asked. Emily took a deep breath and nodded. "As ready as I'll ever be." Together, they walked into the Grand Assembly Hall. The room fell silent as they entered. Hundreds of alien eyes, of every shape and color imaginable, turned to watch them. At the podium, Secretary General Lopes cleared her throat. "Esteemed delegates," she began, her voice strong and clear, "welcome to Earth, and to a new era of galactic cooperation." As Lopez spoke of unity and hope, Emily's mind wandered back to how it all began. A desperate plea for help, a planet divided, and a choice that changed everything. Now, Earth and the Lumina stood as a shining example of what was possible when differences were celebrated rather than feared. In the audience, Sarah Miller, now a diplomat herself, sat next to her Lumina husband. Their child, a perfect blend of both species, slept peacefully in her arms. Sarah smiled, thinking of how far they had all come. Meanwhile, in Earth's orbit, Colonel Jack Harper led a training exercise. Human and alien pilots flew in perfect formation, their ships a mix of technologies from a dozen worlds. Harper grinned as he watched a young Lumina pilot pull off a maneuver he'd thought impossible. "Well done, Zara Jr.," he said into the comm. The pilot's response came back, filled with the same determination he'd heard in her mother's voice years ago. Back at the summit, the delegates had moved on to more practical matters. Trade routes were being established, cultural exchange programs proposed, but the most exciting discussions centered around science and exploration. Dr. Chen took the podium, her excitement palpable. "Thanks to the combined knowledge of our many cultures," she said, "we are on the brink of a new age of discovery. Together, we can unlock the secrets of the universe itself." A holographic display sprang to life, showing a map of the known galaxy. But it was the unknown regions that drew everyone's attention. What wonders and challenges awaited them there? As the summit progressed, News came in from across the galaxy. The Dominion, once thought invincible, was crumbling. World after world rose up, inspired by Earth's example. The age of fear and subjugation was ending. But it wasn't all easy. Old prejudices died hard, and there were still those who resisted change. Yet for every setback, there were a dozen breakthroughs. In laboratories and workshops across Earth and beyond, unlikely partnerships yielded incredible results. In a quiet moment during a recess, Zor-El found Emily staring out a window at the Earth below. "Quite a view, isn't it?" he said softly. Emily nodded. "I never imagined this, you know. When you first arrived, I was just a scientist, trying to understand something new. And now you have helped reshape the galaxy," Zor-El finished. "We all have together." As the summit drew to a close, a new galactic charter was unveiled. It spoke of rights and responsibilities, of the value of diversity, and of the power of cooperation. At its heart was a simple message: we are stronger together. The final vote was unanimous. As cheers erupted in the assembly hall, fireworks bloomed in the space around the station. On Earth and 100 other worlds, people of all species celebrated. In her closing speech, Dr. Chen looked out at the assembled delegates, her heart full. "Today, we have chosen a new path," she said, "not one of isolation or domination, but of friendship and mutual growth. The road ahead will not be easy, but together, there is no challenge we cannot overcome." As the delegates filed out, many stopped to shake hands, exchange bows, or simply to marvel at the diversity around them. Old enemies became new friends, and the air buzzed with possibilities. Outside the station, the stars seemed to shine a little brighter. The galaxy was entering a new age, one of exploration, cooperation, and hope. And at the heart of it all was a little blue planet that had dared to welcome the unknown, and in doing so, had changed everything. The story of Earth and the Lumina was just the beginning. The greatest adventure was yet to come.